Tapping in.
Are we live?
So, I would ask you if you have Netflix, but you have my Netflix. So, our Netflix is in trouble.
Oh no, our Netflix is in trouble. And specifically, what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that Netflix recently announced that it would start cracking down on password sharing. Miles, indeed, you are right. You are the bearer of our Netflix key, and I hope this does not bring unwanted eyes and attention to us. But that being said, what are we going to do? I'm so worried.
I don't know what we're going to do. Are we going to do anything? Do we need Netflix anymore? What was the last thing that really slapped that you watched on Netflix?
I don't want to say the last thing that I watched of quality off of Netflix. I do enjoy their stand-up catalog. I think is quite stellar. I watched Ultimatum. I recently watched Ultimatum. If you've seen it, it's like these couples that are like engaged with me or else, and then they put them all together. And there's like for 2 months or whatever, y'all can intermingle as single people and figure out if you like living with somebody else and dating somebody else, and if not, you can come back and marry your person and stay with them. So they let you form a new couple, stay with that person for a month, and then go back and stay with your person a month later.
Okay. That sounds like quality television. Are we are we counting that as a win for Netflix? Or are we counting that as like is that evidence that Netflix is fire, or is that evidence that Netflix is the daytime reality TV of 2002 now?
And that has been some of the criticism that people have been saying about Netflix and why usership has been decreasing at such a vast rate. Last we heard, 200,000 subscriptions have been lost this year alone in Netflix. 200,000. They said that by June of this year, they're said to have lost 2 million subscribers. And people are just saying this is just daytime TV. The last thing that I watched that slapped was Squid Games. Squid Game slapped. Squid Game was dope. Oh, and Top Boy.
So Squid Game, Top Boy. The other one that I would throw in that joint is the Kevin Hart joint, the True Story. That was on Netflix, good. Right? Indeed. So I think we can point out some gems, and I guess my next thought goes to, so there is still some good content on Netflix, but has it fallen off from where it was? Or was it always kind of mid? We just didn't have as many other options.
You're a movie buff, right? And you're very deep into the history of movies and whatnot. So I was very interested to hear what you had to say about the quality of Netflix movies there. But I think at one particular point, Netflix accounted for almost 50% of all traffic on the internet. And undoubtedly, we have just come out of COVID where all streaming services had seen a boom. And in that same boom, that's where a lot of competition started to creep up. Now, Netflix got some cool things on it, but that HBO, boy, that Disney Plus?
Yeah, especially that HBO. The HBO Max might be the one, low key. Find yourself a friend to share their HBO password. You got that over there in the UK, though?
We don't, but do we have HBO?
There we go. But you know what I'm saying? But so it's interesting because, yeah, I think Netflix at one point, because just of the market share it had, right? Like was able to really like make hay when they was on top, right? Like once they shifted from the mail subscription thing to the digital streaming service, they were out of here. And I think really the only thing that slowed them down was movie studios deciding now there's other places that are licensing the content, right? So rather than your movie hits theaters, then it comes out on DVD, and then you add it to Netflix. Now companies have to decide, all right, is it our own content? Disney, we keeping that. Peacock, I don't know who they think they are. I don't know when nobody that is paying for Peacock, but you feel me. Now all of these different content houses are saying dibs and thinning out the selection of Netflix just by where these other movies are licensed. And so Netflix was fire at one point, and it was a and there was a time when I knew Netflix was fire because it seemed like every movie that I would go out of my way to watch, I would see on Netflix a couple weeks later. But that's not really the case anymore.
And we've seen kind of the transition of how our relation with movies and theaters are, especially over COVID, where there was almost a quicker demand for movies that would be released on cinema to very then quickly show up on streaming services. And at that point, who has the advantage is the big studios because they're able to create their own movies, which is how, as you had put it, how Netflix moved from just renting out DVDs to now having to create the content once the distribution part of Netflix went down. Because as you said, back in the day, what Netflix was a red box. It was just a red box that you'd go to. You'd the hire a DVD would slide out. It was super innovation. It could be mailed to you. It was crazy stuff in the era of the DVDs and the Blu-ray eras. But then over time, as now everything moves online, they got to compete with who's putting this stuff out. Like you put Disney, they've got Avengers, they've got the Marvel universe, they've got all these deep catalogs of art, and Netflix just is unable to keep up, which is why I started throwing gang cash at questionable movies like Bright.
Dang. Well, you gotta kick Will Smith while he's down, bro. It's messed up, man. No Will Smith slander, man. Leave that man alone, fam. That was not a good movie though. It was better than Project Power though. I'll tell you that. Jamie Foxx.
Yo, Jamie Foxx. What the hell, man?
Yo, but rather than slandering all the terrible movies that have come out on Netflix, I think it's struggled to carve out its own lane, right? It's tried to create its own content. It's tried to be the house of dropping the entire season of a show and people binge, right? Like Netflix is the house that binging built, but none of that is exclusive to Netflix. You dig? And that's the issue. There's nothing that Netflix has or provides that none of these other streaming services can provide, right? And so that's a hard model to stay afloat from. But they've had an incredible run, a crazy run as a company.
An incredible run. So much so that they only started losing users now. Bro, we do this English thing.
Bars.
Kick a beat.
You saw me almost kick a beat though. That's muscle memory.
Muscle memory. So they only started losing users now after a decade of having nothing but growth. So what they're saying is that because of having to pull out of Russia, which lost them about 700,000 users, that impacted it. Obviously, the password sharing estimated number of people sharing passwords.
Allegedly.
100 million people is what I read.
But it'll be interesting to see how they do that, how they try and crack down on password sharing, because it'll be interesting to see how they do that, because there is so much legitimate use by single users across different devices and different spaces. It's one of the most, like, to be able to use Netflix while you travel, especially once they implemented that you could download certain things off of the platform. That'll be really hard for them to regulate. And it'll be, how are they gonna throw money at that and continue to create content? And they have a lot on their plate as a company. And it's interesting, like sometimes I'm thinking of like Kleenex, right? Like you have this product or this company that makes a product that fills a service that's so unique or new that the name becomes synonymous with like the activity, right? Like Kleenex is a brand, but that's what people in like the US say as tissue. Like, let me get a Kleenex, right? Netflix has been that for streaming, but without a specific foothold in the industry that's exclusive to Netflix, everybody else is gonna, you know, Kleenex, Netflix might not be the top selling brand of tissue streaming. You dig?
Bars.
Out here.
And that's how that goes with the competition levels. Like you're saying, it's getting more expensive to produce movies. Binging culture is changing the way that we engage with that content. More sadly, and maybe this happened over COVID too, there's no more Netflix and chill. There's no more Netflix and chill for real. I don't know if we can get that off anymore. If Netflix and chill is still an option, and those are the percentages that I didn't find in my research.
So if anybody would like to confirm and verify that Netflix and chilling is still on the table, hit up my boy's way. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and throw it in the comments. Don't be shy. We will get back to you. You know what I'm saying? There you go.
Thanks, brother. Getting right to the essence of what I was really trying to get to.
There you go. There you go. Have you ever tried to Netflix and chill and you either threw on a movie that was too interesting that y'all both ended up just watching it, or you threw on a movie that was a horrible choice and it killed the vibe? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, you're talking about that criminal mastermind show with
No, you threw on you threw on true crime trying to Netflix and chill?
yo, those investigations were quite peak, dude. There's nothing that can happen when you have to really get down to the heart of who disturbed this quiet town in suburban Eastern America.
That is hectic behavior, my G. I feel like you can. That's what you do with like the wifey. Like y'all know each other, so we can both watch this murder happen, and we like. I don't know about watching murders with strangers,
Yeah,
but
it kind of sounds like you're shaming.
no, I don't mean to shave you, bro. I don't mean. I asked the question. But hopefully you learn from that. That ain't doing that one again. No,
Which
no.
ones stick out to you as a connoisseur of movies?
No, I ain't gonna cap. The first time I threw Top Boy on, just like before I really knew what it was, just like on some like, yeah, this is like just as like this is the vibe of my crib. Like, oh, you pulled up? I was in the middle of watching Top Boy. Forgot you were coming over. Type shit, nigga. I got so sucked into that. I'm just she's sitting on the couch. I'm sitting like this, like looking like this. I'm like, yeah, word, yeah, good day. That's crazy, bro. What's somebody took the food? This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? I definitely, yeah, nothing happened.
You came out of there with a different accent, didn't you? We've seen it happen all the time. You start
Oh
Top
yeah.
Boy speaking one way, you end up speaking a different way.
Just mentioning it now, I'm in danger of slipping into an accent. No cap.
And I hope that us being over here in Exeter and in the UK allows us to use some of the UK slang, which we shall borrow as we go into the next segment of what we have to speak about, Mr. Miles Xavier.